1,000 Shall Fall by Susi Hasel Mundy. Chapter 1. The Draft.
Nobody can defeat us.
Chin held high, the teacher gazed into the solemn faces of his third-grade students. The year was 1939, and most of his fellow Frankfurt citizens shared the teacher's confidence. After all, hadn't their fatherland and their Führer proved this over the past 2 decades? German hard work, German quality control, and German stubbornness had lifted them from war-blasted paupers to Europe's most energetic nation. The future belonged to the Reich.
We are the strongest people on earth,
he told his class.
And best of all, children, if anyone should dare to invade our airspace, we have the flak cannons.
9-year-old Kurt Hasel sat straighter. He pressed his lips together and took a breath through his nose.
These cannons are located all over Germany, the teacher said. They are so precisely calibrated that they can shoot out any airplane from out the sky. That is why Germany will be victorious.
Kurt's gaze wandered proudly to the window. Through it, he could see the sun sparkling on Frankfurt's sturdy green trees. This was his Germany, his fatherland, the greatest country in the world. "Mutti," he said to his mother that evening, "won't it be wonderful to win the war?" Mother cupped a hand around each of his shoulders and turned him to face her. "Kurt." "What?" Her voice was serious. "I want you to remember something." He tried to wriggle away, but she held him firmly. "Kurt, if we win the war, it means that we have taken other people's countries away from them." "So?" "Millions of people will lose their homes and their lives." Her hand loosened from his shoulders. Her arms went around him, and her voice spoke from just above his dark head. "Children will be separated from their parents and their brothers and their sisters. You may never see Gert and Lotte again." She squeezed him and gave him a little shake. "War is wrong, Kurt. Killing is wrong. God wants the Hasels to be peacemakers." "Still," Kurt said stubbornly, his voice muffled against her, "it would be exciting to see the airplanes being shot out of the sky." By 1939, Franz and Helene Hasel and their neighbors knew that Adolf Hitler was indeed preparing for war, and like everybody else, the little Seventh-day Adventist family had been wondering what the future would hold. They were soon to find out. One warm Sabbath after church, they entered the lobby of their suburban apartment building. 6-year-old Lotte darted over to the Hasel mailbox and looked through the slot. "Mail, Papa," she said. Franz unlocked the box and took out a bundle of letters. Flipping through them, he said, "Only business mail. It can wait till after sundown." Helena quickly heated up the customary Sabbath meal consisting of dark bread and the lentil soup she had prepared the day before. "Please, can we go to the bird paradise?" Kurt begged. "It's so nice today." Lotte and 4-year-old Gerhard, the family nicknamed him Gert, chimed in. "Please, please, Papa." Franz gave one longing glance at the stack of books on his desk. He liked to study the Bible and Ellen White's writings and had been looking forward to a quiet afternoon at home. He sighed and nodded. The walk soon led them away from civilization and into the wide expanse of open fields that stretched behind their large apartment complex. The children delighted in walking on the narrow trails through the ripening fields. Sky blue cornflowers and scarlet poppies peeked through the still faintly green wheat shafts, which stood taller than their heads.
"Let's pretend that we're the children of Israel," Kurt said. "We're walking through the sea. Those flowers are fish."
Eventually, the family reached a railway embankment. Carefully crossing the narrow footbridge that spanned it, they listened to the faint humming of the rails far below. On the other side, they rested on the warm grass. "A train!" Lotte called out. As the passenger cars roared and clicked their way along the tracks below, little Gert clung to Mother's skirt while Kurt and Lotte waved to the engineer and the smiling passengers. This time, the friendly driver even blew the train's whistle for them. It was a red-letter day, one the children would remember as their last day of untroubled happiness for several years. As the train disappeared, the family wandered down a sandy path that followed the tracks until they reached the place they called the Bird Paradise. It was like a secret garden surrounded by a thick, high hedge. There was no gate, and no eye could penetrate the green thicket, but the most melodious bird songs floated out of that mysterious place. Helene and Franz sat down in the shade of the hedge and quietly discussed the threatening political climate. Lotte started picking wildflowers, while Kurt and Gerd collected pretty pebbles and snail shells. When a cool evening breeze started blowing, they wended their way home. After supper and sundown worship, Franz got the stack of mail.
"All right, let's see who's sending us letters," he said.
He dealt them on the kitchen table into piles. Suddenly, he paused, peering closely at an official-looking envelope.
"Helena, it can't be."
"But I think." He slit one end of the envelope and drew out a stiff piece of folded paper. Helena looked over his shoulder.
"That's impossible," she said. "You're 40 years old. There's some mistake."
Franz's voice, usually so confident, now sounded dazed and thick.
"It is. It's a letter from the draft board. I am summoned to the Army Recruitment Center in Frankfurt on Monday at 8 a.m.
This Monday?
This Monday. In 2 days."
Helena and Franz stared at each other.
"I thought I was too old," he said. "Instead, it looks like I'm one of the first to be called up."
He herded the children into the living room and told them to sit down. Then he explained that he had been called to be a soldier. Lotte started crying.
"Soldiers get killed in war," she sobbed. "Will you die?"
Franz opened his mouth to reply, but before he had a chance to say anything, Kurt said scornfully,
"Don't be silly, Lotte. Germany is the strongest country in the world. The other soldiers will die, not ours."
"Papa won't die?" Lotte asked hopefully.
"Of course not," Kurt replied. "We have powerful weapons that no one can defeat. And we have the flak anti-aircraft artillery that can shoot airplanes out of the sky if they attack us. We will win the war, and Papa will be a hero, and Germany will rule the whole world."
Franz's face turned white. A devout Seventh-day Adventist, he was firmly pacifist. He hadn't suspected how fully his firstborn son, at age 9, had bought into Hitler's goal to make Germany the center of an expanding 1,000-year Third Reich superpower.
"Kurt, children, listen to me."
Gerd climbed on Papa's lap and started sucking his thumb. Franz tried to explain why war was wrong and that Hitler was a bad man who did not love God. Kurt listened, but the jut of his small jaw showed that he still thought that being a soldier would be a jolly good adventure. Monday at the recruitment center, Franz passed his physical exam. Then he filled out a lengthy information sheet and handed it to the officer in charge. "Sir," he said politely, "I am a Seventh-day Adventist Christian and a conscientious objector. I would like to serve as a medic." The officer looked him over. "Seventh-day Adventist?" he repeated. "Never heard of it." He called across the room to a colleague.
"Hey, Hans, do you know anything about Seventh-day Adventists?" "They're like Jews," Hans yelled back. "They keep Sabbath."
The officer gave Franz a baleful look.
"Well then," he finally said, "what would you do if you were caring for a wounded soldier and the enemy launched an attack?"
"I would lie on top of the man and shield him with my body, sir."
"Indeed."
The officer rolled his eyes, then said spitefully,
"Well, we have no room for cowards in the German army."
He flipped through some papers, then wrote Franz's appointment on the intake form. Franz had been assigned to serve as a private in Pioneer Park Company 699. Franz swallowed. He knew the pioneers well, At age 18, he had served with them in World War I. The pioneers were engineering units that prepared the way for the army to follow. He also knew that the prestigious Company 699 was assigned the task of building bridges wherever Hitler planned his next advance. This means, Franz thought to himself, that the soldiers in 699 will always be among the first Germans in enemy territory. No doubt the officer had put him on the front lines because he hated men who were not supportive of Hitler's war effort.
"Don't just stand there, Private," the officer snapped. "Move on. We have other people to process."
Franz went to the clothing barracks, where he was issued the complete gray-green uniform of the German army. He received a pair of trousers and a combat tunic with 4 patch pockets, gold tresses on the collar, and the emblem of the Nazi eagle clutching the swastika sewn above the right breast pocket. He also received a wide black leather belt from which he could hang his bread bag with provisions. He was given a pair of shoes, a pair of high boots, a side hat, a steel helmet, and underwear and socks. He was told to report to duty on Wednesday morning. Back home, the children explored the uniform. Lotta liked to carry her dolly in the bread bag. The various compartments were just right for a spare bottle and diapers. Gert put on the side hat with the colorful red dot in front encircled by a white and black ring. Kurt cocked his finger and aimed it at Gert.
"Bang! I hit you right in the forehead. You're dead."
Gert promptly started to cry. But Gert's favorite was the steel helmet. He liked the smell of the new leather webbing that lined its crown. Padding it with newspaper to keep it from sliding over his eyes, he proudly paraded through the house proclaiming that no one could hurt him. In the next couple of days, Franz had much to do. For years he had been a literature evangelist and publishing secretary in Austria and Germany. So now he contacted the publishing house in Hamburg and the conference president to inform them he'd been drafted. Working methodically, he finished reports and answered letters so that when he left, his work would all be in order. On Wednesday morning, Franz buttoned and buckled his uniform on, then called the family together. Lotta looked at him with awe and whispered, "Oh, Papa, you are so handsome." Kurt studied the belt buckle. The Nazi eagle encircled by the words, "Gott mit uns," meaning God with us. "Papa," he said thoughtfully, "if Hitler wants God to be with us, he can't be that bad."
"Kurt," Franz said with intensity, "Hitler is an evil man. Never trust what he says. You stay true to God and to God only. But come now, let's have worship before I have to leave."
Franz read from Psalm 91, verses 5 through 11.
"Thou shalt not be afraid for the terror by night, nor for the arrow that flieth by day. 1,000 shall fall at thy side, and 10,000 at thy right hand, but it shall not come nigh thee. For he shall give his angels charge over thee, to keep thee in all thy ways." Then the family sang their favorite hymn, "A Mighty Fortress is Our God." Afterward, they knelt in a circle and held hands while Franz prayed. "Our Father," he said, "I have been drafted to be a soldier. You know that I have no interest in war and in fighting. You know that I found no joy in battle in the great war, even when I wasn't a Christian yet, much less so now. Please be with us, Father, as our paths separate. Help me to be true to my faith, even in the army. Help me so that I will not have to kill anyone. Please bring me back safely and protect my family from all the dangers of war at home. Amen." It was getting late. They quickly said their goodbyes and Franz left, feeling in his heart that one day they would be back together